Morning, everybody. Professor Vinay Pathak, if he's here, uh, my colleague and distinguished Vice Chancellor of the university to which this college is affiliated, Professor Vinita Sahai. I could hear a couple of sentences which she spoke last when I joined. She is director of IIM Bodh Gaya. Arpit Chadda, Vice Chairman, Mr. who introduced me and is always responsible to persuade me to be here. Dr. Sunil Pandey, who has been a colleague for more than a decade now. And I'm so happy that he's not only taking the institution forward, he is taking the subject of computer science and information technology forward, not only through this college, but by the general perception of holding very good conferences and seminars and making sure that this is one of the leading institutions, at least in northern India. I will like to congratulate Sunil and
Thank
all
you so
his
much, sir.
for doing exceptionally well, and wish God blesses him to continue better and better.
Thank you, sir.
Having said these words, let me first of all congratulate the institution for holding this conference in a very beautiful manner, in a very dignified manner, in a very academic orientation sense. I do not find conferences these days can afford to accept 30% papers. Uh, Most of the conferences, I find the acceptance ratio is 80%, 85%, 90%, something like that. So in that scenario, to be able to give a signal of quality is a great thing. It really does not matter how many papers are presented in the conference. If what matters is how are you raising the quality of knowledge, because these conferences to be organized by educational institutions was just one of the means to enhance the knowledge and knowledge dissemination amongst the peers. Unless those purposes are served, these conferences do not serve any great purpose. If we have only students in mind, then we can have workshops and tutorials for them and so on and so forth. But if we have a workshop at this level, the purpose is that after attending 2 days of workshop, one should be at least delta x richer in knowledge than what he or she had. And I'm sure this purpose is being served. And that's a very pleasing news. And I once again congratulate. Friends, I have seen the accreditation and NIRF ratings for your institution. And once again, being chairman of the National Board of Accreditation and also having the additional responsibility of looking after national ranking at the moment, I feel once I'm here in person with you, let me congratulate you in person for doing very well on both these aspects. The conference is very well attended and have very distinguished speakers. As I told you, I just heard Professor Vinay Pathak fully and Professor Vanita Sahai partially, and that gives me a flair of what is in store for the participants. Friends, the title of your conference itself is very challenging because in computer science, to be able to even think of talking about upcoming technologies or next generation technologies is a very bold step by itself, because I really don't understand what does next generation mean, whether the generation is 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. I mean, the lifespan of the generation itself has gone in for such a transformation that what do you mean by next generation? That's a great challenge, first challenge by itself. I remember having read a paper. The author went a great deal to say this will happen in future, this will happen in future, this will happen in future, and then finally, when he finishes his uh, 2 pages paper, he says, by the time you have finished this paper reading, future has already come. So whatever I was talking, that this will happen in future, probably must have happened before you finish reading this paper. So that is the speed at which we are going. I mean, nobody could have imagined that online education will be successful to that extent. I'm not making anybody complacent. We have miles to go ahead, but at least the way it has been handled in the whole country, right from school education to university education, is remarkable. Imagine otherwise, we had 33 crore students from school to university. If they were not handled well, I mean, most of them would have been in hospitals, sitting home, idle, confined to the home, not coming out, but at least teachers kept them busy, knowledge delivery kept on, a session is saved, and so on and so forth. So that is one of the fringe benefits of computational technology which has come to the surface by default. And that gives us many promises of the future. I always say, well, this online webinars is very good. I mean, I have absolutely quite fine with online webinars, except that you will like to meet once a while because meeting peers itself is a pleasure. But online education completely may not be the new norm. We will certainly like that the institutions open as soon as possible and we are able to do face-to-face education to the extent possible. Having said that, at least for first 6 to 8 months, we may not be able to have face-to-face education the way we used to have, because you may not be allowed to have 60 students in a class, you may not be able to have 30 students in a laboratory, and therefore you will have to have maybe half the students in the college at a time, so on and so forth. And the other half will probably have to continue on online mode or something like that. So therefore, you have a great challenge to decide amongst yourself as to which topics I can justify online, which topics I will prefer to have the students face to face, and draw a priority and the time you are given for face to face, how you handle it, that will have to be decided. Why I am raising this is a fringe benefit which has come to the education out of the computer technologies which we have, as Dr. Sunil said and Dr. Vinay Pathak also said. I mean, all these technologies were there. Probably nothing new has been invented, but they have all been now used properly. And there's a greater challenge still, how to make online education more effective. Most of us were never trained for online delivery, but online delivery has to be disciplined by itself. So how to train ourselves in that? For example, one of the schools of thought, very strong schools of thought, is when you have a physical class for 50 minutes, 45 minutes, 60 minutes, online class ideally should be just about 20 minutes. And therefore, how do you make a lecture into sub-modules, supplemented by assignments, supplemented by students' own projects? That is a challenge, because online class for 50 minutes does not deliver the knowledge in that high intensity of perception. That's a proven research. And therefore, all our teachers will have to learn as to how a short duration class supplemented by XYZ will deliver the same deliverables which I used to deliver when I used to have a class. At the moment, I am Chairman National Board of Accreditation, and I always say we are worried about graduate attributes, outcome-based education. How do you deliver those outputs is not my concern. whether you deliver them face to face or you deliver them online, but they have to be delivered. But this is a challenge. To deliver them online, there are several things which are challenged. But there are several things which could be better done online. Let's not, once having adopted this technology, let's make better of both words. This is not a bad word, online technology. I mean, we engineers particularly always felt online education is not for us. But that's not true. There are several things which can be done better online. Medical education, we feel, is still worse to be done online. But I went to, it's a long back, I think more than 20 years, I went to McMaster University, Canada, and they were trying online education for medical education. And a professor of anatomy explains to me, sir, online is better. I say, I give them a dead body for dissection. If the student applies the scissor wrongly, he does it wrongly. If I'm not nearby, there is nobody to tell him or her that you have made a mistake. In the simulated dead body on the computer, when he applies the scissor wrongly, computer shouts at him, what the hell are you doing? You don't know where to apply the gun. So the education might be better on a simulated dead body rather than actual dead body in several aspects. So point which I'm trying to say is time has come for us. You are mostly teachers, therefore I'm addressing in that sense. Time has come for us to make sure where to use online education effectively and how to make the best of it. Examination is a challenge which still we are debating, discussing, and things are improving, but we have to do a lot more before we are able to have foolproof examination systems on online education. Much is done, but much more is to be done. Having said that, because your conference is on next generation technologies, and as I said, next generation is difficult, but nonetheless, computer science has identified about 8 technologies which they call as essential 8 for the coming times. And those 8 you have heard, you probably will hear during those 2 days very effectively. Artificial intelligence, Internet of Things, 3D printing, robotics, drones, augmented reality, virtual reality, and so on and so forth. These are the technologies which have come to stay and which are being used. Now, I find the challenge for computer science people is, and for all engineers in that sense now, let's for the time being give our engineering excellence a little backseat and give the front seat to how can I be more useful to the society? How can I make artificial intelligence more useful to other than engineers? How can I make Internet of Things more useful to other than engineers? Artificial intelligence, for example, today is highly being used by banking sector, by medicine sector. Mr. Sood was giving an example when he was introducing us how a 5-year-old felt suffocated by going to doctor after doctor, and he thought, why can't we have a system? So artificial intelligence today, you have expert system for almost many diseases, and those expert systems are much better diagnostics than any best doctor in the world singularly. That is where the applications are which are being used. Banking industry uses artificial intelligence like anything. And there is much more which is in store for us. I was reading an article, when more, not if not most, I think maybe a significant percentage of population plus 40 in this country is diabetic. And every doctor tells you, if you are diabetic, get your retina examined every year. It's a possibility that retina might get affected. Now, researchers have come to the conclusion only in about less than 5% types of diabetes, retina gets affected. Remaining 95% retina does not get affected. Now, supposing I am able to know whether my diabetes is sensitive to retina or not, I save annual retina examinations for 50 years of my life. How great benefit it will be, how much medical personnel saved, how much money saved. And these are the things which can be done by artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence could tell me that if this is the pattern of my diabetes, then my diabetes is diabetes, but it is not likely to affect retina. And that will be a great effort. So similarly, there are several things which can be done, and computer science traditionally has been a user-friendly discipline. I've been saying right from beginning, we computer scientists made sure that we will work hard for the society. That is where we converted machine language into assembly language 5 decades ago to compilers because everybody else should be easier. We invented touch screen so that even illiterate could use the computers. We did a lot of research, but make sure that the keyboard is very friendly for you. You may not even have to use the keyboard. We invented the mouse, which is easier. So the point is, all through the philosophy of computer science has been to put in effort at the research level, but then make sure life of the general public is improved, is facilitated. I think that focus will have to be reiterated, refocused, and made sure that we do it much more for other sections of the society by being more and more user friendly. So whether it's artificial intelligence, whether it's IoT, whether it's augmented reality, whether it's virtual reality, what can I do for farmers? What can I do for doctors? What can I do for lawyers? What can I do for housewives? These are the areas which will help us. What can I do for education? And this is one example which we are using today, how to use computer science for education. So I think computer science for education and computer science for health will, and computer science for agriculture will be three main focus areas which this country needs, and conferences like this should debate and bring up on. Friends, when I talk about next generation technologies, next in thing is that you will have to talk about combination of these technologies. For example, today we talk about embodied artificial intelligence. You know, earlier we had hardware and software. Then we embedded software into the machines and we called it firmware or whatever. And today you have much of the software which is taken care of by so-called embedded chips. So artificial intelligence will take the shape of embedded concepts, and we'll call it embodied artificial intelligence, which will be a combination of 3D printing, artificial intelligence, drones, etc., etc. We are talking about automation. We will now have to talk about intelligent automation. We are automating everything, but how does the machine themselves is able to take a decision whether this route for automation will be the best or this route for automation will be the best at this present juncture? And that may depend upon how many people you have in office. Automation route might change. And you will understand the necessity of this when our factories were asked to reopen with one-third staff. Now, if our automation is not flexible, then people came up with the idea, unless I have all 150 people on the conveyor belt, I can't produce anything. Because our automation is a fixed automation. We will now have to go to intelligent automation, where automation itself can automate itself and bring into more flexible thing. We will have to call automating trust, because when everything is being automated, how do people trust the organizations? See, when it was face to face, it was easy to build the trust. But when it is automated, automating trust is a new discipline which is being talked about. That is, how do we design technologies in a way that the world believes that we are a trustworthy organization? We will have to talk about conversational interfaces. Just as you can call Uber anytime, you can call Airbnb anytime to take a hotel room. Maybe old people will have a technology to call a youngster to call home and talk to them for 1 hour to pass their time. That will be a conversational interface technology will help us to make sure that we make their life comfortable, life easier, and youngsters in the process get some employment and things like that. But this is not this was never thought of. But now technology can enable it. Extended reality will be there, which will be a combination of augmented reality, virtual reality, so on and so forth. Uh, this is a group of institutions which has medical science also to some extent in the form of dental colleges, but and one thing which I believe the next generation, medical science and computer science will have to work very closely together. They are already close enough. Whenever I address the doctors, I tell them you have to be so grateful to the engineers and computer scientists as you would not have been able to do your job today if computer science would not have been in the back. Talk about X-rays, talk about CAT scan, talk about MRI, talk about entire diagnostics. The tests which used to take weeks now take hours. I mean, I gave my that annual health checkup, and 11 o'clock I get a message. My blood sample has been loaded, and 3 o'clock I get report for all 65 tests. So that is the diagnostics which has been facilitated by computer science, and you need now one drop of blood for a test. Earlier you had to give 5 ml for everything. I think you had to, if you had to get 50 tests done, you probably had to give 100 cc of blood for those tests. So that is the computer science and automated diagnosis. And now with the Prime Minister announced digital health mission, where just like we will have all a digital card which will give entire health history. I mean, not today, but if the project goes along, right from the birth of the child or pre-birth, all the medicines taken, all the tests done, all the diagnostic history will be on a card, and that will facilitate the health services like anything. I do remember in good old days, whenever there used to be an accident and somebody taken to the hospital, the first thing doctors did was to start glucose. And quite a few people died because of glucose because they were diabetic, and doctor never knew it. Because doctor didn't have the time to perform the test. Test will take time, patient's time is critical, and giving a treatment was fatal. Now, if you have a digital card which the doctor can read, this will never happen. So imagine what can be done. And this brings me to tell you, technologies will have to learn from each other all the time. Aeroplanes were being designed, and doctors learn from that. Everything. I read a case study where a 15-year-old schoolboy manipulates using data science, 15-year-old boy, 10th class, manipulates using data science the genes of a particular type of cancer, and he says, I'm not a doctor, I can't cure the cancer, but I can manipulate the genes from cancer type A to cancer type B, and doctors feel cancer type A was incurable, cancer type B is curable. Now once you are saved, is it the doctors who have saved you, or this 15-year boy has saved you, which converted the form of your cancer from A to B, which was from incurable to curable. So that is the future of computer science. I believe computer science, computer technologies will have to do so much more in the coming days, and a new policy of education has given a very beautiful thing, that concepts of computer science should start from a very early age. I mean, I don't say that they mean you should go into the rigor of compiler design or discrete mathematics. But what is important is, number one, computational thinking. Computational, any one of you who has ever written a small computer program knows unless you think clearly, you can never write a program. So computational thinking is so important in life. I mean, I for one, even if I have to speak to you for half an hour, I have to think. What will I speak first? What will I speak next? What will I do next? And so on and so forth. If I want to convey something, even if you want to prepare a dish in the house, you have to prepare a logical plan. I'll do first this, second this, third this, fourth this. So computational thinking, where a problem can be segregated into small problems, micro problems, and then solved, is a great training by itself. And I think that is the training which every citizen must have. And I remember maybe 40, 50 years ago, I read a book whose title was "You Can Eat an Elephant." Now, the title of the book appears nonsensical. It says you can eat an elephant. If you open the book, the second page says, provided you know how to slice it properly. You know how to slice it properly, you can eat it. It will take 2 years, 3 years, doesn't matter, but you can eat it. So you can solve very big problems if you know how to modularize it, how to segregate it, and that is the computer science which we need, computational thinking which we need. Second concept which I thought I'll convey is computer science has been interdisciplinary right from beginning, whether we believe it or not. I always say there cannot be a more diverse combination than philosophy and mathematics. And computer science has taken birth out of the marriage of philosophy and mathematics. Philosophers had a logic. If this happens and this happens, then this can happen. They had this logic, but they never had mathematical language for this knowledge. So computer science people invented Boolean algebra to give a Boolean. George Boole was a mathematics. He never knew computer science. So a mathematician's language and a philosopher's logic combined together, which gave birth to computer science. So we are inherently interdisciplinary. We will have to be more and more interdisciplinary to make sure that we are able to understand the issues, we are able to solve the problems, we are able to take it further. And I always now have started conveying very strongly, computer science will have to apply itself very strongly to sustainability development goals. Our goals, which have been defined by UN, have not been really realized, even in a partial sense. We'll have to go ahead and do that. And I always quote, finally, Ray Kurzweil, who is a future predictionist. Many of his predictions have come out to be right, whether we believed it or not. And he says by 2029, computers will have, by 2029, computers will have human level intelligence. Now that's his prediction. And 2029 is only 9 years away. So if computers are going to have human level intelligence, what are we going to do? That's a challenge for us. And already I see using artificial intelligence, your JEE, which is a life torturing test in this country, more than 85% questions can be solved by a computer. Now, so does it mean these computers are more intelligent to be engineers in IITs than human children? That's a situation which we can't permit. And therefore, what we have to do at that time, we will have to start preparing now. And I'll quote one more statement from him. He says, in 2025, artificial intelligence will surpass human intelligence. And if artificial intelligence will surpass human intelligence in 2045, I hope and pray many of you live together, live till 2045 to see that when artificial intelligence surpasses human intelligence. But then he says that will be a point It's a challenge for the humans, which is a challenge for artificial intelligence, because fight will become stronger, fight will become more interesting, and it will continue to do so. Friends, talking about computer technologies, one can spend, I think, 2 days of the conference, which I don't intend to do that. But people say the computer, next generation computers will be very different kinds of computers. Your children will see the computer, not your children, I think your younger brothers and sisters in next 5 7 years will see a computer who won't have a mouse, who won't have a keyboard. Computer will see your hands, computer will see your eyes, it will read your eyes, it will see your gesture, it will speak to you, it will talk to you. Computer will remain, but the total interface of the computer is going to change. When we started using computers, we used to take cards like this, holding 2,000, 3,000 cards and going to the computer center. Then we came the computers where we started feeding tapes, then keyboard, then mouse, and now the computers using artificial, they will see at my face. And therefore, they will read before I speak what I am thinking. And that is a challenge. And therefore, people say computers will be able to tell you, are you speaking the truth or telling a lie? Because it will read your emotions before your words come out. So, next generation computers is a challenge, will remain a challenge. And I think that is the greatest beauty of computer science, that we are fortunate to face that challenge, and therefore bring ourselves more and more up to date to keep ready. And finally, I always tell the teachers, the challenge for you, having proved the success of online education, has become greater. Because now, when online courses are accepted, the student might say tomorrow, well, sir, I don't like your course, I will take a course from that person online. How does it matter for you? And therefore, you will have to make yourself much more relevant, much more meaningful, much more aligned to your students, much more relevant. Otherwise, we will have a very because credit transfer, flexibility of education, all these things are coming in a big way. So, my dear friends, you are all teachers. Our challenges are now going to be greater for education, because students will have a lot more choices than we have. And I'm a hardcore optimist, as many of you know, and the challenges are going to be greater. Therefore, I'm pretty sure my colleagues will come out to be much more capable, much better proven. I'm sure of it. But all I'm trying to tell you, before you face that situation, I'm making you ready for this. It's going to come. You will have to take yourself to a higher level to use the next higher level technology. And otherwise, as somebody rightly said, if your mindset remains 20th century, you will not be able to perform in 21st century. And this third decade of 21st century is going to be a great transformative decade, and you will have to be in that stream. You cannot stay on the edge. And now if you want to swim across, you will have to make yourself capable for that. Otherwise, you know what happens. So having said that, I wish you a very great deliberation in these 2 days, and I look forward to some significant outcomes of this conference at the end of it. Thanks to once again for allowing me to be a part of you in this organization, and wish you all the best.